We got Super Bowl 56 on Sunday. Straight up, who do you have between the Rams and the Bengals on Sunday?
I've been rocking with him for a while now. I'm going Cincinnati all day. Here's why. I think Joe Burrow's ready for the spotlight. I think that offense is ready to move. I think that defense has stunned a lot of people in the last couple of weeks, first containing Derrick Henry and then going into Arrowhead and containing Patrick Mahomes. Now, the one area of concern for me is, of course, the offensive line. However, I think that Cincinnati's offense will be well prepared for the pass rush that is Aaron Donald and Von Miller. So I think that they're going to have short, intermediate passes, a lot of running plays to go and alleviate some of the stress off of Joe Burrow. And then, of course, have some play action incorporated to go and freeze those linebackers and get some of those wide receivers in separation. To be quite honest, I did actually see a funny point that was made. Not funny necessarily, but Richard Sherman had stated on his podcast that he does not believe that the Rams can contain Jamar Chase. And that specific reason is because the Rams don't play a lot of man and there's a lot of zone going around. So if Jamar lines up on the opposite side, or if Jamar shifts in motion, Jalen's not following him for the majority of the game, unless the Rams go out and change their defensive scheme, which I don't think that they're going to do. I really would have to agree with Richard. The more that I actually paid attention and remembered a lot of those Rams games, Jalen Ramsey was floating and was in situational coverage at best, to put it. But overall, I think that Jamar Chase is going to have himself a pretty big game. He's been very influential and very impactful in his first postseason. And I think that that's going to spark a massive game for Joe Burrow. I'm not saying he's going to carve up this Rams defense, who's been one of the best in the postseason. Arguably, you could make the point of it being the best. But I think that they're ready to go, man. I think that they are going to have themselves a really good game. I'm predicting Joe Mixon to have over 100 total yards between receiving and rushing. I got Joe Burrow throwing for about 275, 300, two tuts, maybe a pick or two because it is a big stage. I don't know if he's ready to just overcome it with perfection. But I'm going to go out there, and I normally don't make a score, but I'm going to say that this ends up being a 7-point game, probably around the score of 28-21, something of that magnitude, with the Bengals coming away with 2 turnovers.
Kevin, I've been going against the Bengals pretty much throughout this entire postseason run simply because I didn't think that they had the pieces to get to this point. But I have to say now, I'm a believer in the Bengals, and I'm going to pick Cincinnati in this one over the Rams, and here's why. So with the Bengals offensively, they have really shown me that they've been playing smart football throughout this postseason run. And it really kind of showed itself to me in the biggest stage before the Super Bowl in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. Despite the fact they got off to a slow start in the first half against Kansas City, they were able to turn it up in the second half and really put KC on their heels by just constantly moving the ball down the field to get it into scoring position. And even though that I didn't think that Joe Burrow lit up that KC defense or their secondary to a certain extent, he played within himself and he made the plays that needed to be made. And really, that's really the best formula that I think that the Bengals can have in this game against the Rams. Start off slow, get used to the game just in the first quarter, going into the second quarter, some things like that. And then as you get into the second half, make your adjustments and then really try to punish the Rams if they make some defensive coverage mistakes in that part of the game. So I have to agree with you about the Jamar Chase angle. I think he's going to have a fantastic game against that Rams secondary just because up until this point, I think Jamar has probably been the best receiver, maybe outside of Cooper Kupp, in the playoffs so far. And despite only being a rookie, he has not played like one, and he's playing like a top tier wide receiver at this point. So unless the Rams go out in double coverage against him, I think Jamar could possibly have 100 yards receiving. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a touchdown or two against that Rams defense. I think offensively, they do have to integrate Joe Mixon as a priority just because you got to present the Rams with different looks. And I think, to be quite honest with you, I think he's going to be a bigger factor in the passing game than he is in the run game just because I don't think he's going to have a lot of run lanes to go through against that vaunted Rams front four with Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and Von Miller. I think it's going to be tough sledding for him to get decent run yards, but I think he's going to be huge in the passing game. And I wouldn't be surprised if Joe checks it down a couple of times to Mixon throughout the game. Now, the biggest thing with the Bengals is their defense. How is this defense going to hold up against that Rams high-powered offense. Well, if you look at the game last week against the Chiefs, they held the Chiefs to 3 points in the second half and overtime. If they're able to perform to that type of level against Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., Van Jefferson, I think they have a very good shot of being able to contain that Rams offense to under 20 points. Granted, it's a lot easier said than done, but I think that they have the pieces to do it. I think their pass rush has been phenomenal throughout the entire postseason run that they've had. It really showed itself against the Chiefs in that AFC Championship matchup, and I think they can exploit that Rams offensive line pretty significantly because we saw in the NFC Championship game, the 49ers were able to get a pass rush on Matt Stafford and made some bad throws from Matt just because of the pressure that was constantly getting to him. And the Rams really didn't turn it up until the fourth quarter because the Rams only scored 7 points in that NFC Championship game through the first 3 quarters. So I think if the Bengals, they hold down defensively, they do what they need to do on offense, play a clean game from beginning to end, I see the Bengals coming out on top on this one. I do agree with you. I think it's going to be a one-possession game when it's all said and done. I'm going to go with a tighter margin, though. I think it's going to be a 4-point game when it's all said and done. I think the Bengals win this one by the score of 28-24. And I think the Bengals, I think they get a game-winning drive out of Joe Burrow at the end. I think he leads them down the field and gets him a touchdown, maybe with like 20 to 25 seconds left in the game. And I think that'll be the deciding factor. But I'm a believer in the Bengals. I've been wrong about them the entire postseason. I'm picking with them in this game, and that's just how I see it.